I'd like to say shalom to all the brothers and sisters on this morning, to all of our Israelite brothers and sisters, those that are near and those that are far off. We have done a couple of videos lately on on the captivity. As you can see, shouts out to Yahakanan, John Williams of Rhema Word Clothing, The Last Captivity. And that's what we have done the last couple of videos over. They're not no new videos. We've done them before. Every now and then, certain things come up again. So, many of the brothers and sisters on Facebook Live, they was coming back with quite a few statements and quite a few questions concerning the last captivity and the fulfilling of the promises of Scripture as it relate to the return of the Most High's people back into his homeland. So that's what we felt like we'll come on here and give people the opportunity to put their statements on there and even ask some questions. So that's what we'll do. This is a Q&A session. We don't always know whether we're going to have people that are going to come on and ask no questions. And I'm going to be the first one right out the gate to make a declaration that I don't know everything. We know the scriptures say he who the Most High seeing will speak the words of the Most High, because the Spirit would lead us to the answers in Scripture. Those things that I'm unable to answer, those questions I'm unable to answer, it's because don't no man know everything. We only know what the Most High give us to know. So, here's the video. I know many brothers and sisters probably at work. We have many brothers and sisters that may not be at work. So while we are waiting on some things and some people to come on the line, we'll start this off by, first thing we want to do is we want to look at the return back to the homeland through the eyes of our forefathers as they viewed it. Because they went from one captivity into another one, they had a view. And then also, Shalom, Sister Goodwin. And also they understood, they had an understanding of the land that had been given to them when they were taken out of it. We'll represent the very first captivity that we came out of, and that was the Egyptian captivity, because we didn't know nothing else. Only thing we ever knew was Egypt. We had not been given a land yet. And the land that Jacob and the sons resided in went into a famine. And because of that famine, they went into Egypt to survive. And then Egypt, or Mitzrayim, became the land that the people would be incubated in. Because they went in there 70 people and then came out a great multitude of people. But when they did come out, the only thing that they were familiarized with is the place that they was coming out of. And that's kind of like us. From generation through generation, this is all we ever known, is this Western Hemisphere. And even though we understand where our ancient ones came from, we have never understood anything about the land that they came from. So that right there is going to be key. Let's give you an idea. Once our forefathers did receive land, when they were taken out of it, they had something to compare their captivity to. And let's pull up a scripture. Let's go to the book of Psalms 126. Psalms 126. The reason why we're bringing this up, because many of the brothers and sisters, whether they be up under the banner of Christians in church, whether they be Hebrew Israelites, whether they be brothers that are in our Islamic faith, it doesn't matter, because all of these entities use the scripture, and all of these entities understand the covenant that the Most High have made with Israel. And all of these entities that use the Bible have they have access to the same thing. One of the things that we know is that when we start looking at prophecy, prophecy declares that all of those that went into captivity will one day be returned to inherit the land that was promised to our forefathers. And as we said before, that was something that was mind-shaking to a people coming out of Egypt. They had the promise of receiving land. So it's a little bit different with them. The other facet of the scripture that we're going to be looking at is them that had already received the land and then was taken out of it. In our case, we have the mindset of our forefathers that came out of Egypt. They didn't know what to look forward to. The only thing that they had is where they was at. And, you know, when you don't know where you're going and you don't know what's before you, that all by itself is challenging. So Psalms 126 will give us an understanding into the mindset of the ancestors when they were taken out of the land. It says at the first verse, when the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dreamed. Then was our mouth filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. Then said they among the nations, the Most High have done great things for them. The Lord had done great things for us, whereof we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O Lord, like the streams in the Negev. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy, and he that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again, rejoicing in his sheaves, bringing his sheaves with him. Now, so our ancestors that were taken out of the land that understood, the land that had been given to them, it said when the Most High came along and began to return our captivity, we were as them that dreamed. You see, for the ones that had left the land that the Most High had given them and went into captivity, they had only dreams of returning. But when the Most High turned the captivity and reversed their captivity, their children said, we became as our ancestors that only dreamed about returning home. And that is kind of how, in a sense, there are many brothers and sisters that feel the same way as they see the captivity being reversed. They said, now we are becoming as those, our ancestors that only dreamed about returning back to their homeland. But these particular people, they were not exposed to the land either, because you have to understand, one generation after another generation was born in the land of their captivity just like us. But they said we were as them that dreamed, and our mouth was filled with laughter, and we was filled with excitement of returning back to the land that was given to our forefathers. And it's amazing, because when we look at the ancestors that were dreaming, let's look at the ancestors that were dreaming. Let's look at what our ancestors that was dreaming about returning home felt like. Let's go to Psalms 137. Mind you that this book is a guide, because it helps us to see what some of our brothers and sisters, our ancestors that went before us, went through. So it gives us comparables that we can now compare to whatever our situation is. And so let's go to Psalms 137. This is going to be interesting. Verse 137 says, by the rivers of Babylon. Now these are the people, these are the ancestors that have been taken away captive. And they were dreaming about the place that they were taken out of. And even though they dreamed about it, they never returned to it. But their children sprung up and said, when the Most High started reversing the captivity and giving us the right to go back home, we were as them that dreamed. Them that dreamed but never seen the promise come to fruition. So it says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. So we know that this is Babylonian captivity. This is the second captivity after they had been given land once they came out of Egypt. He said, yeah, we wept when we remembered Zion. You see, they were weeping in this captivity because they had already received the land of their own. They were able to do what they wanted to do. They were able to build and to make things happen. They didn't have nobody lording over them. They was able to just have something of their own, and now that had been taken away from them. And he said, we sat by the river of Babylon, and there we sat down, and yeah, we wept when we remembered our homeland. Well, we don't weep because we have no remembrance of our homeland. But we do have the prophetic promises of the Most High that one day we would return to our homeland. But many of our brothers and sisters have been completely turned off about returning to their homeland, because the only thing we've ever been exposed to is this Egyptian captivity. And we're bringing this up for a reason. And we'll get into that as we go forth. For there, they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. The nations are no stranger to the giftings of the Negro. They're no strangers to his ability and the spirit that was put on him. that praise could come out through song and through all these different other aspects of giftings that we as a people have been given. It's the same way that now they require of us a song. Sing us a song. And then they required mirth of us. Mirth dealing with do something that will make us joyful. Do something that will make us joyous. Henceforth, in this captivity, we have become accustomed. Our ancestors were not accustomed to these things because they understood where they came from. And as they tell us to sing us a song, they'll put Jennifer Hudson on the stage. And at the presidential balls and all those things, they'll bring our people on and say, sing us a song. And they require mirth of us. Bring things to us that will cause us to be full of joy and full of laughter. Well, look at what our ancestors' response was. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her coming. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy, remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee, as thou hast served us. Happily shall he be that taketh and delight and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. See, our ancestors that were exposed to the land, they had a much different mindset than we have. They said, no, if I forget the homeland that my father gave me, let my right hand become forgetful. If I forget Jerusalem, the land that the Most High gave us, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. And basically what he said, if I ever get to the point to where I forget about this glorious homeland that you have given me, let me just die right then and there, because there is nothing to look forward to. Now, these ancestors felt this way because they had experienced the goodness of the Most High as he did what he promised to do and gave Joshua and them the land, that every place that the sole of their foot would tread, he would give it to them. And that land would just become productive and produce and be a blessing to them people. Those people that were exposed to it, they died without ever seeing their homeland again. But their children said that when the Lord reversed our captivity and gave us the opportunity to leave, we were as them that dreamed. We were as our ancestors that dreamed about going back home, but never made it back home. Our hearts were filled with laughter, and our mouths were filled with singing. When we start looking at what many of us classify as the last captivity, then we don't have and we don't share this same mindset. And it's understandable because our forefathers, when they came out of Egypt, the only thing they ever knew was Egypt. Their father is dead. The ones that went before them into Egypt are dead. Only the children came out of Egypt into the desert. But those children had only been exposed to Egyptian living. The culture that they knew was Egyptian culture. The teachings that they experienced was Egyptian teachings. The food that they were eating were Egyptian diets. They only knew that. So when they came out into the desert, they came out into the desert with the promise that the Most High was going to give them their own land. But they could not go into their own land with the mindset of the captivity that they were a part of. So it was a purging process. Do you not know that many of our ancestors, they all died in the wilderness. Their mentality could not make the adjustment to prepare themselves for a place that they had never been before. Their mindset could not accept the fact that they had to give up their thinking, their Egyptian thinking, just like many of our mindsets can't grasp the fact that we have to give up the westernized thinking, the only thinking that we have ever known, the only thinking that we have ever been exposed to, the only teachers that we have ever known. The Most High is calling us, you have to get rid of these things because you can't take these things into the places that I have promised for your forefathers. And it was unbearable for them to do. And so they all died in the wilderness. Only the Most High would raise up another generation that was not exposed to Egyptian culture, to Egyptian diet, to Egyptian lifestyle. He would raise up another generation in the desert that only thing they were exposed to was the desert. And these would have a zeal in their heart to look forward to the land that will be promised to them, that will be flowing with milk and honey, that there will be grapes on the vines the size of apples. You see, it was the mindset that had to be changed. You see, and because of that, they had a desire to inherit the promises that the Most High had made, where their parents didn't have no desire because of what they was exposed to. They came out of a place where it seeming like, even though they had bondage, they had things that they desired to have, into a desert and a barren land. They were not content with that desert and barren land, because what the Most High was trying to do is show his people that he could sustain them if only they believed in him. But they couldn't get past what they had been through or the place that they had come from. So they were constantly looking back at the land of their captivity, in the same manner that we are looking back in the land of our captivity, and we can't muster up the faith that it takes to go into places of unknown. And I don't knock nobody for that, because there is a great wrestling with that. When we look at the United States, we have been painted a picture in our life that the United States and this Western Hemisphere is the greatest country that ever in the world. We have been painted that it's the richest nation in the world. We have been painted that we have access to all of these different things. We can eat whatever we want. We can go to all of these different places for entertainment. We can do all of those things. And when they paint us the picture of our homeland, the only thing that we see is dirt roads and huts and starving people. And we see a land that looks and appears to be as though it's a third world country and it's centuries behind the rest of the world. But that's a lie. That's a lie from the pits of hell. Our homeland is not a third world country. Our homeland is one of the greatest countries ever known. This is why the Chinese man is over there right now, and an American man wants to get over there. The Russian man is doing everything that he can to get on there. Every other nation on the planet is desiring and seeking to have our land because of what it is. And they know. Because a captivity is up, you have to be persuaded in your thinking. You have to be literally turned off by what has been promised to you. You see? You have to be completely turned off. But there's a generation of children that are coming up behind us that are fearful, that have become so complacent with the only thing that we've been exposed to that we are unwilling to release ourselves. So just like our forefathers, we'll make excuses for every reason that we can't do it. Let me show you something. Many of our brothers make excuses to the point to where they think that the Most High is some type of genie. Don't you understand that the Most High reversed the captivity when he removed the blockade and said, it's up. The 400 years is over. So our brothers move into a place of science fiction in order to make themselves feel comfortable about where they at. We remember the beets and the onions. Who gonna give us the flesh to eat? We remember all of the things of Egypt. Did you bring us out here in this wilderness to perish? Would to God that we would have left us where we was at, in bitter bondage. This is what we saying right now. Would to God that you just leave us alone in bitter bondage. Yeah, I got the house and the car, but you know what? I can't drive my car too far because the enemy's out here still killing us. The house, the car that we have, we're still in bondage because even though you think you may own it, you got to pay property tax, you got to pay sales tax, you got to have insurance, you got to have all of these things in place in order to enjoy it, and you can't even enjoy it. Because if your tags ain't right, you get a ticket. Now you're in court. Now the money that you got to have for other things you got to spend and give to them. So it keeps you in a constant bind. You don't pay your property taxes. Okay, the house you paid took 30 years to pay for now can be taken in 3 years if you get behind. All of these things are happening. We remember the beets and the onions, but we don't remember the bondage. Shalom, which means greetings, Nick Gurr. All praises to the Most High. So that's the whole ball of wax. How do we readjust our thinking? Well, this will help. There are many brothers and sisters that have a desire to visit their homeland, but they don't have the means, or either there are blockades that have been put up that have prevented them. You see? But there are many other brothers and sisters that do have the means. We're not saying pack up all your stuff and just run out and move, because that's what some of our brothers and sisters try to make it out to be. Like, well, we can't move until the Lord say so. Do the Lord have to tell you to go to the grocery store? Do you have to pray to the Lord if you want to go to Las Vegas for a vacation? How about if you want to take a cruise to Cancun? Do you have to ask the Lord in order for you to travel and go on vacation to the Bahamas? You see, when we start talking about going back to the interior of our homeland, we make every excuse in the world, and we'll go all over the place before we go and do that. Now it's suddenly that the Lord has to do some miraculous event to get me to move or to get me to go somewhere. Do you not know that this Western Hemisphere will always be the birthplace of this generation of Israelites? Nobody can take that away. Just because you go to the interior of your homeland doesn't mean that you don't have the right to come back here. But here's the point that I want to make. How do you know if you will ever want to come back here if you were never exposed to what been promised to you? And how could you say that you believe the Bible when the Bible speaks all through the scriptures of regathering his people and returning them to the land that he promised to their forefathers? You see, we have become comfortable and complacent in a land that is not ours. Let's go look at something. And mind you, we started this up to be a Q&A session. I'm just talking because there ain't no questions being asked. Let's go over here. We're going to let's go to Genesis chapter 15. Let's close that. Let's go to Genesis chapter 15. Trying to find the King James Version. Okay. Man, this is crap. guess it's going to give me the... no thanks. Okay. And sometimes these phones, they want so much information, which is another thing. We are volunteering ourselves as captives, even though captivity is up, is finished. Let's go to Genesis chapter 15 and 13. This is what he's saying to Abraham before Abraham had Isaac, and before Isaac had Jacob, and before Jacob had 12 sons, and before, through the 12 sons, the whole nation was birthed into existence. This is before any of that. He said, then the Lord said unto him, know for a certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country that is not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they served as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. Now, when you start talking about coming out of a place after the captivity is up, it will not be no miraculous event. It will be a phenomenal type of miraculous event from the standpoint of those that have not what they need to get out. Way will be made for them. Those who have been put different blockades on, like felons and child support and things of that nature, and poor things of that nature, there will be something that will transpire in the earth that will override all of that. That's the only miracle in it, you see. But as for everything else, he said, they shall come out with great substance as the Most High begin to judge the nation that they served. Now, the Most High judged the Egyptians. And guess what happened? The people came out, but they didn't come out riding on no cloud. They came out walking on the feet that they had. They came out bearing great substance from the Egyptians, because that was what the Most High is promising. This is how they came out. What I'm trying to show the brothers and sisters is that they coming out of it will not be a miraculous event. It will be because the punishment that the Most High had put on us has now been lifted. And now our choice and our right to do a particular thing has been reinstituted. You see, it was no miraculous event when we were carried away into captivity. Even though the Most High had prophesied we would go into captivity, he didn't send no cloud and no angels to pick us up and put us in captivity. He used the armies that were in the earth to come and now take us as hostages. And then we walked into captivity. When our captivity was up, we walked out of Egypt into the desert. And when our captivity, our final captivity is up, it means that we now have the right to make a choice and walk out of the place of our captivity to inherit the things that the Most High had promised to us. But many times our brothers have a habit in wanting to try and spiritualize everything. And it's only an excuse. Because none of your forefathers that came out of Egypt inherited the promised land, because they made every excuse in the world to go back. Many of them wanted to go back to Egypt. Many of them stayed in Egypt because they had a choice now. As with all the other captivities, our people had the opportunity. Nehemiah was the cupbearer of the king. Yet when the children of Israel went back to Jerusalem, it was desecrated, it was in shambles, and the walls had been burnt. And even though Nehemiah was the right-hand man to the king, that lets you know that he had a wonderful life. It said that his heart wept and his countenance was changed. And the king asked him, why is thy countenance fallen? And Nehemiah told him, he said, I'm weeping because I see the condition of our homeland is in. And now our people have a right to leave and return to their homeland. It's in bad condition. How are we going to rebuild it? He asked the king if he could be permitted to return with his people to help the building process. You see, it don't always mean that it's going to be what it once was. It may take some putting things in place because we have gotten preoccupied with everything being done for us as a people. And that have caused us to be lazy. All things in this empire, everything is at our disposal and everything is pretty much done for us. And we don't have to assume no responsibility. If a person or a mother, somebody don't want to go to work, they just go get on welfare. If they ain't getting enough money, they just go to the assistance place and get some assistance. All of these things have been put in place to keep your mindset in a place to where you don't want to leave this place because it's too easy for you. It was a great challenge when our people got back to their homeland. And grant you, just because you get back to your homeland doesn't mean that you won't come up against opposition. Because as they were building the wall, Nehemiah had to assemble together builders that would begin to build. And then he had to assemble warriors that would stand watch because the enemies didn't want to see it get built back up. And then it was a group of nations that was around that was constantly ridiculing the children of Israel, trying to make them think that what they was attempting to do was impossible. So Sanballat and them came along and said, oh, you going to build back the walls again? Oh, look at that. Them walls been burnt. Them walls been burnt. If a fox run across that wall, it's going to come crumbling down. See, it was always going to be people to ridicule and make excuses as a means to discourage the people from not attaining the thing that was promised to them. But we praise the Most High for our ancestors like Nehemiah, who would stop at nothing to do the things that were needed. And when we have a mindset to really turn our heart back to the promises and the prophetic promises of the Most High, then he said, the heart of the king, according to the book of Proverbs, is in my hand, and like the rivers of waters, I turn it wherever so I want it to go. He is able to take the kings of this nation and have them to put the necessary finances, or many may say reparations, or whatever it is. But we know one thing, that the Bible prophesied, we will come out of this place with great substance. That means that we will have whatever it is that we need to make our land produce whatever it is that it needs to produce, because the Most High said it. The problem is that, do you believe it? You see? Do you believe it? Because faith is an action word. You can't just sit around all day and talk about the Bible and talk about Yahshua and talk about all this and then spit on your birthright to return back to the old waste places. And the Bible called it in the book of Isaiah that you shall be the repairer of the breach. That's what the man that turned his heart back to the Most High is going to become. He is going to become the repairer of the breach and the one to build again the old waste places. You know? So, you know, we just, for our brothers and sisters that are able, we want to encourage people to go on a vacation. Since you like to study and research, and don't pay attention to what you see on TV, because that little tiny sliver of land is not our homeland. That is not Israel. That is not Israel. The only reason why Israel exists is because in 1948, they knew that in less than 50 years, that the captivity of the Negroes in this Western Hemisphere would be up. So they had to go before with deception to try to create Israel as a means to keep the mind of who Israel is off of what his name was and off of what his purpose was. And we've been mentally programmed through TV to think that that is Israel, but that is not Israel. The Most High calls Israel to inherit the land of Canaan. Do you understand how vast the land of Canaan was. When you look at the whole continent of Africa, it is the largest place on the planet. But a major portion of that was given to Israel. It cannot be that little tiny piece of what they call Israel. We've been deceived in a whole lot of ways. But one thing there is no deception about. There is no deception about the prophetic promises of the Most High when it comes to regathering his people. See, people looking for some angels to come down. This is the mindset of a child. They're looking for some angels to come down miraculously, just picking the fire. Man, the spirit of the Most High is in the earth right now. His people are simultaneously being gathered all over the world, in every land that the Negro have been sprinkled in. He is waking up to the fact that he is indeed the children of Jacob. That is the regathering process. Having your name brought back, having your understanding brought back of who you are, according to the prophecies in the book of Isaiah. Let's show you what the regathering is. It's not no miraculous event. It is a phenomenon that's happening by way of the Spirit, simultaneously affecting all of the descendants of the slaves at the same time. But let me show you what the gathering is. It ain't gonna be happening. Most High didn't use no angels to put us in captivity. He used boats. And when he get ready to bring us back, we'll come back in planes and boats and any other means of transportation. Video on pause for a second. Okay, we back. So, man, I lost that thought. No, I didn't. I got it back. Thank you, Father. Now, let's show you what the regathering is. We're going to start at Isaiah chapter 44. And this is for some of our Christian brothers that may be watching too, because whether you understand it or not, you are Israel if you are the descendant of the slave. And you'll thank the Most High for the religious construct of Christianity, because it is the vehicle that he chose to use to keep us preserved and to keep us connected until what was rightfully ours, until his knowledge and understanding would be released in the earth. Now, this is going to be good for you because it helps you to understand the things that were prophesied as we look at them taking place right before our very eyes. It says, "Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus said the Lord that made thee. I formed thee from the womb. Who will help thee? Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou, Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground, and I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thy offspring." This is the regathering of the house of Israel. He said, I will pour my spirit out on your offspring, meaning those that went into captivity and lost their names, lost their history, lost their culture, lost their identity. He said, I am going to pour water. I'm going to pour my spirit on those offspring. This is what is known as the regathering. Okay, let's show you. "And they shall spring up as among the grass, like willows by the water. One shall say, I am the Lord's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall write on his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name of Israel." Now, these things are happening according to prophecy. They're the result of the Most High pouring his spirit upon the offspring of Jacob. He's telling you how you're going to be able to identify the gathering. He said, when I pour my spirit upon my people, they're going to come to understand who they are. And as a result, this is what they're going to do. One is going to say, I am the Lord's, and another will call himself by the name of Jacob. Another one shall subscribe with his hand and write his name as Israel. Many people don't understand why when you look on Facebook, you see all of these Hebrew names coming back. All these Hebrew names coming back all over the world. Everybody is putting a new name on themselves. It's a direct result of the Most High gathering his people in the spirit. And because they have been gathered in the spirit, they are now doing things in the flesh that's to be as an eyewitness account of the fulfillment of the Father's prophecy. And we're doing all of that, you understand what I'm saying? But we're yet still turned off by our own land. Because in order for us to be Israel, we're going to do what Israel was put here to do. And we can't spit on our birthright when it comes back to returning home. It may be work involved. But guess what? You don't know whether it's going to be. You've been working for somebody else your whole life. You don't know what kind of feeling you're going to have when you get to work for yourself. And being that we shall leave this place with great substance, that means that whatever we leave with, it will become great when we get in the land. We work for people all of our life and we've been content with that. Never mind, you ain't never understood what it would be like to work for you. And your brother is working for you. And you're all working together as one functional body to build your own nation and build your own empire. Our ancestors became contented with building the empire of everybody else, just like many of our brothers. Our entertainers, our sports figures, they have become content with building everybody else's empire. You see, why they talking about people knowing who they are, like our brother Kaepernick, knowing who they are, our brother Nick Cannon, knowing who they are, our powerhouse entertainers knowing who they are, and still trying to get things done in the land of their captivity. They have the opportunity to move outside of the places of their captivity and start building things on behalf of their own people and not on behalf of the ones that have continuously tore down everything that we have intentionally or everything that we have set out to build. These things are just natural thinking. Natural thinking. So I'm saying to myself, how many brothers and sisters that have the means will even go and visit? If you woke and you understand that the grand sum total of the Most High's promise is that he is going to return Israel back to his land, wouldn't you want to be the first one in line to go and see? How is it that we can't become like the two scouts, Joshua and Caleb, that went before the land that they were supposed to inherit and spied out the land and took a good look at the land and see what the land was producing and see who was on the land and how they was going to deal with them that was on the land when they first got there? You see, where are our scouts at? Where are the men that's supposed to be going before the children of Israel and putting things in place? Many of us can't. But there are many of us that can. Do you know how many millionaires, Israelites that we have in this country? Some of us even billionaires. Do you know how many rich people that we have? How many well-off people? How many middle-class people? How many people making 6 figures a year that's of Israelite descent that are content with building somebody else's empire? Have no desire to go. Do not understand that they're no longer captives. That means that they can go and they can come as freely as they desire to. They can go to Africa. They can go into the interior of our homeland and put things in place and be sitting over here in their mansion with their feet up. Because we're no longer under captivity, we have the right to move freely about this whole world. And at the end result, the whole world, the whole continent of Africa and every other continent on this planet will be ours, because the Most High will bring them up under our subjection and up under his righteous rulership in the earth. That's bad. That's bad. But if he can't readjust your thinking to put you in the right place, how in the world can you fulfill the promise of Abraham that said, in thee, in thy seed, shall all the families of the earth be blessed? That means that if all the families of the earth are going to be blessed, that means that Israel have to assume jurisdiction and rulership over the entire globe. But it will never happen if the Negro can't readjust his thinking to go beyond the place of his captivity and into the promise that was made for him. So, what y'all think about that? Anybody on the line got anything they want to say? I'd sure like to see it if you do. See? Because it's time out for tossing that Bible around. It's time out for all that stuff. Now it's time to put up or shut up. You know what the old folks used to say? You're either going to eat or you're going to get off the pot. It's time to put up or shut up. And all that, I'm blessed. I'm highly favored in the Most High. You know what? Let some of our Christian pastors that have their congregations, that have their leadership, that have their membership, you see, they put money together to send a false people into the land. Let me show you something. If those people can leave Poland and Spain and Russia and Khazaria and travel all that distance into a land that's not theirs and was never promised to them, if they can travel all that distance to become thieves of the earth, why is it that our people can't get their mind right to travel? Was it a miraculous event that the thieves got put over there? No, it wasn't. They heaped up physical money to buy physical plane fare and to get on physical planes and fly across a physical ocean and occupy a physical land. Howbeit that we have many of our brothers in Christianity who have, the church have spiritualized everything as though he ain't talking about no physical land. Get out of here with that nonsense. Are you kidding me? You better run out of there. So, nobody's saying you pack up and just, you could. Many of our brothers and sisters already have. You see? Many of them already have. Many of them already have. Because if you really understood, if we really understood what was waiting on us, I don't know about nobody else. But I thank the Most High that he didn't allow me to go from state to state, from state to state. And each state that I go to, I see something different. I learn something else about myself. Man, when the elders over there first invited me to come to Israel, I was just blown away. But I was saddened too, because I have blockades up. The blockades will eventually be lifted, so I count it as the will of the Most High that I'm unable to travel out of the country right now. But man, if I get the opportunity, if they say, you know what, your blockade is lifted, you know what, man, if I got to go through my neighborhood, if I got to get on Facebook and I got to beg everybody that I know, I need everybody I know to send me $5. I need everybody I know to send me $5. Then that's what I'm going to do. Because if I don't do nothing but go to see for myself, that's what it's going to be. And just to have the option, just to know that I don't have to stay. I can come back. I can go as freely as I choose to do. That's going to be powerful. That's going to be wonderful. So it's something for you brothers and sisters to be thinking about. Remember, it's either the last captivity or it ain't. Shalom.